What truly binds men in obedience? Love or fear? Love is fickle, born of gratitude and easily betrayed when fortune changes. But fear endures, for it roots itself in the marrow of survival, where no sentiment can reach. Yet the art of commanding fear is not as crude as terror alone. It is subtler, more precise, and more dangerous. It is the shaping of perception, the bending of appearances, the mastery of uncertainty. Few dare to speak of it openly, for it unveils the darker architecture of power. But if you would learn how such a mind is forged, listen closely. Perception governs the world more than truth ever could. Men do not act upon reality itself, but upon the shadow of reality that reaches their senses, and it is this shadow you must learn to control. To build a mind that commands fear, you must first grasp that appearances are more powerful than facts, for the majority do not see with reason, they see with instinct, with prejudice, and with imagination. One who appears strong, even when secretly weak, is treated with respect, while one who is strong yet careless with appearances will find his power doubted, challenged, and eventually destroyed. The surface is not a mask to be despised. It is a weapon to be sharpened, for what men believe of you is often more decisive than what you truly are. Understand this clearly. People do not wish to look too deeply. They are content with impressions, with symbols, with the performance of power rather than its inner machinery. Therefore, cultivate the ability to present yourself as unshakable, even when storms rage within you. If your enemies suspect weakness, their courage will multiply. If your allies sense insecurity, their loyalty will dissolve. But if you cloak yourself in an image of composure, even the boldest will hesitate to test you. The world is not moved by the naked truth of your condition, but by the narrative you weave and sustain. Consider the ruler who shows doubt in public. His authority wanes at once. Rumors spread, enemies plot, allies drift away. Yet another ruler, equally beset by difficulties, who appears serene, decisive, and unyielding, finds his people clinging to him more firmly. The difference lies not in reality, but in the image each one projects. This is why deception is not merely an act of survival, but a higher form of wisdom. By shaping perception, you shape the battlefield itself, bending it before the fight has even begun. A mind that commands fear does not expose its inner workings freely. It learns to conceal weakness and, when necessary, to disguise strength so that opponents underestimate and fall into traps. It is better to appear unpredictable than transparent, better to project power that exceeds your actual means, for men do not measure you with precision. They exaggerate what they cannot fully see. One gesture of calm in crisis convinces them you are unshakable. One display of sudden force convinces them you are merciless. Fear grows in the shadows where certainty cannot reach. You must remember that appearances are not lies, but instruments. The mask you wear is not falsehood, it is a weapon, and if wielded with skill, it becomes indistinguishable from truth. Let others waste themselves seeking authenticity. You must seek influence. The one who learns to command the gaze of others, to dictate what they believe and expect, possesses a power greater than any sword or fortune. For when men fear what they perceive, they will never dare to test what lies beneath. To command others, you must first command yourself. Nothing invites contempt more quickly than a man enslaved by his own emotions. He who cannot master anger is easily provoked into mistakes. He who displays grief too openly shows the wound where he can be struck again. He who rejoices too freely reveals his desires and makes himself predictable. Understand that emotions, when uncontrolled, make you transparent, and transparency makes you weak. A mind that seeks to inspire fear cannot afford to be an open book. It must be a fortress whose walls reveal nothing except what serves its purpose. The world is filled with those who know how to exploit sentiment. They search for a trembling lip, a heated word, a glance of insecurity, and with these small signs they begin their conquest. By mastering your emotions, you rob others of this advantage. They stand before you and see no weakness to exploit, no spark they can fan into fire. Instead, they encounter restraint, silence, composure, qualities that unsettle far more than loud displays of feeling. When men cannot read you, they hesitate, for uncertainty breeds fear. But control does not mean suppression without strategy. Emotions are not to be killed, but to be disciplined and trained like soldiers. Anger, when mastered, can become a weapon of intimidation, unleashed in precise moments to shock and subdue. Grief, when contained, can be transformed into dignity, making others see strength even in suffering. Joy, when measured, can become an instrument of charm, disarming suspicion and drawing others closer before you tighten your grip. The key is never to let these forces spill uncontrolled, but to release them only as calculated moves in your game of power. Imagine a ruler who rages at every offense. Soon, his enemies will learn to provoke him deliberately, guiding his hand into ruin. Now, imagine another ruler who endures insults in silence, strikes only when he chooses, and does so with devastating precision. The first is a prisoner of his passions. The second is their master. Which of these would you fear? Certainly the one whose silence conceals fire, not the one whose flame flares uncontrollably. A feared mind is one that does not betray itself to the world. It shows only fragments, and those fragments are carefully chosen to instill unease. The smile that appears rarely becomes more frightening than constant cheerfulness, for it leaves men wondering what thoughts lurk behind it. The anger revealed once in a lifetime has more weight than the tantrums of the unstable. Even tenderness, sparingly given, becomes a weapon because men recognize its absence everywhere else. Therefore, if you seek to command fear, begin with yourself. Do not let others steer your spirit as if it were their possession. Hold your emotions tightly in your grasp, and when you release them, let it be deliberate, calculated, and never for their sake, only for your own advantage. The man who bends his own passions to his will bends the world with them. Predictability is the ally of your enemies, and it is the snare that captures the careless. Men feel secure when they believe they can read you, when they think they can anticipate your actions and prepare their defenses in advance. To command fear, you must strip them of this comfort. You must learn to move as though governed by no law except your own will, capable of mercy today and cruelty tomorrow, of silence in one moment and sudden force in the next. When you are unreadable, those around you will walk carefully, never knowing which step might provoke a storm. Consider how the human mind craves patterns. People seek to predict others, to place them neatly within familiar categories. Once you are known to them as entirely merciful, they will exploit your kindness. Once you are known as entirely cruel, they will unite against your tyranny. But if they cannot decide what you are, if you exist in that twilight between benevolence and ruthlessness, they will never feel safe enough to resist you. It is not constant harshness that commands fear, but uncertainty, the dreadful anticipation of what you might do. This unpredictability must not be chaos but design, A fool acts without pattern because he lacks discipline. A strategist acts without pattern because he has mastered control. There is a great difference. To cultivate unpredictability, you must never allow your habits to become visible. Vary your responses, alter your tone, shift your methods. Reward one act of loyalty generously, then punish another with cold severity. Speak much on one day, little on another. Laugh once at an insult, then answer another with swift reprisal. In this way, you deny your enemies the ability to calculate, and without calculation, their courage collapses. Imagine facing an opponent who always acts with kindness. You would not fear him. Imagine another who always responds with cruelty. You would fear him once, then learn to unite with others against him. But imagine one who is sometimes merciful and sometimes merciless, sometimes silent and sometimes thunderous. With such a mind, you never know where you stand, and your imagination multiplies dangers greater than those that exist. Men often suffer more from their fears of the unknown than from actual blows. And if you master this, you rule their spirits before you ever raise a hand. Even in small gestures, unpredictability serves as a silent weapon. Do not attend every gathering you are expected at. Appear suddenly where you were not anticipated. Speak warmly to one servant, coldly to another. Let your silence weigh heavier than words, and let your occasional words strike with unforgettable force. Each inconsistency creates tension, and tension ripens into fear. Remember always that power does not rest solely on strength, but on the perception of possibility. It is the uncertainty of what you might do that binds men more tightly than the certainty of what you will do. If they cannot predict you, they cannot prepare against you. Thus, to build a mind that commands fear, cultivate an aura of uncertainty, for fear flourishes best in the darkness of doubt. Hesitation is the language of weakness, and weakness invites rebellion. When faced with a decision, to pause too long is to expose uncertainty, and men sense this exposure as blood in the water. They grow bold when they believe you are unsure, and their boldness multiplies as rumor spreads. To command fear, you must act with swiftness and precision, leaving no doubt that once you have chosen a course, it will be carried through without retreat. Decision is not merely the act of choosing. It is the weapon by which you silence opposition before it finds the courage to speak. Consider how men interpret hesitation. When a ruler debates endlessly, his followers begin to question whether he is capable of leading. When a commander delays, his soldiers lose faith in victory before the battle even begins. Yet when action is taken swiftly, even if severe, it projects certainty, and certainty alone creates obedience. People prefer the cruelty of a decisive master to the confusion of a hesitant one, for in decisiveness they find structure, while in hesitation they find chaos. And chaos is far more frightening to the weak than harshness. You must understand that decisiveness is not the absence of thought. It is the discipline of swift judgment. Weigh your options in private, but once resolved, move without falter. Do not reveal your calculations, for they make you appear vulnerable. Reveal only the strike, and let it land with such finality that no one dares to question whether it was just. Men rarely admire endless deliberation, but they always fear irreversible action. A feared mind knows when to listen and when to close its ears. It does not gather counsel endlessly, for too many voices erode authority. Instead, it takes what is useful and then acts as if the decision was inevitable. In this way, others believe your will is not born of chance or persuasion, but of strength itself. What is seen as inevitable is rarely opposed. Think of two leaders, one who trembles at every possibility, who waits for reassurance, who changes course as often as the wind shifts. This man invites mockery. Now think of another who, once he resolves upon a path, advances like an arrow. Even if that arrow strikes hard, even if it wounds unjustly, none forget the force with which it was released. The first inspires contempt, the second inspires dread. Who, then, holds true power? Do not mistake mercy for hesitation. Mercy can be a tool, but it must arrive swiftly and with purpose, not as the refuge of indecision. A delayed punishment loses its sting. A delayed reward loses its charm. The world fears only what acts without delay, for suddenness has the quality of inevitability. Therefore, if you would build a mind that commands fear, learn to strike without pause. Let your decisions fall like thunder, leaving no time for men to gather courage against you. For it is not merely the strength of the blow that subdues, but the speed with which it arrives. Mercy is a double-edged blade, and few know how to wield it. To give it freely, without thought, is to disarm yourself and invite contempt. Men come to expect it, to abuse it, to test its limits until your authority is reduced to a pleading voice. But to withhold mercy completely is to harden all hearts against you, driving them into unity born of desperation. The feared mind does not fall into either trap. It learns to ration mercy, to dispense it rarely and with intention, so that when it appears it strikes like lightning in a desert sky, unexpected, unforgettable, and never mistaken for weakness. Mercy must always serve power, never undermine it. When you deny it, do so without apology, and let your refusal echo as a warning to others. When you grant it, do so in a way that creates dependence or gratitude mingled with fear. A man who receives your mercy should not leave with the thought that you are kind, but with the knowledge that you could have destroyed him and chose not to. Gratitude alone fades quickly. Gratitude fused with dread endures. Observe the difference. If you pardon an enemy recklessly, he may rise again and see your gesture as softness, emboldening him to strike at you later. But if you pardon him at the moment of his deepest despair, when he believes the end is certain, your mercy becomes etched in his mind as a gift of life itself. From that moment on, he owes his existence to you, and though he may still hate you, his fear of your power will chain his hatred. The art lies in timing. Mercy offered too early loses its weight. Mercy delayed until the moment of greatest vulnerability binds the receiver to you like iron. A ruler who saves a man before punishment feels inevitable, makes an ally. A ruler who rescues after punishment begins, makes a slave. Both outcomes strengthen his hold, but neither is possible without discipline in withholding. And never give mercy where it cannot be remembered. A kindness wasted on the ungrateful is not mercy but folly. Choose carefully the moments when sparing a life, forgiving a debt, or overlooking an offense will echo through the minds of many, not just the one who benefits. Mercy should be a performance staged for witnesses, not a quiet indulgence hidden in shadow. For fear grows not only from what is done to one man, but from what all men see you capable of doing. Mercy, then, is not the opposite of severity. It is its servant. It must always remind others that refusal was within your reach, that destruction was possible, and that your choice to withhold it was deliberate. To wield mercy in this way is to turn compassion into a chain and forgiveness into a blade. For nothing commands fear more deeply than the knowledge that your survival depends not on justice, but on the will of one who could end you and chooses not to. Power that can be questioned is power that will eventually be tested. To command fear, you must rise above the realm of mere men and surround yourself with an aura that suggests inevitability. as though your authority is not chosen by circumstance but woven into the very fabric of fate. Men do not dare to challenge what they believe to be destined. They bend before it. Thus, you must build not only strength, but the appearance that your strength is untouchable, guided by forces greater than reason or chance. Every word you speak, every silence you hold, every gesture you make must feed this illusion of inevitability. Move with purpose, as if each step has already been decided long before the moment arrives. Never let others see you surprised, for surprise makes you human, and humanity diminishes fear. Let them believe that you knew what would happen before it occurred, that outcomes bend to your will, that even the accidents of life serve your design. In this way, men will see not a rival but a figure touched by destiny, and it is destiny they fear most, for none can resist it. Symbols will aid you in this work. The mind that commands fear understands the power of ritual, of appearances repeated until they seem eternal. Enter a room with calculated slowness. Maintain composure when others tremble. Let silence stretch longer than comfort allows. These small acts, performed consistently, create the impression that your power is not fleeting but eternal, not fragile but absolute. Men come to believe in the permanence of what they cannot shake, and belief is the foundation of obedience. Consider the difference between two leaders. One rules with force alone his soldiers, his wealth, his laws. The other rules with force, but cloaked in the aura of inevitability, so that even when his soldiers falter, his enemies still hesitate, believing fate will punish their defiance. The first may be resisted when his armies weaken. The second endures, for resistance itself feels futile, as if striking him would be striking against the order of the world. The key lies in never allowing others to glimpse the machinery behind your power. Do not reveal doubts, struggles, or vulnerabilities, for these crack the illusion and invite rebellion. Let others think you are not merely strong but invincible, not merely clever but destined. When storms rage, stand unmoved. When fortune fails, behave as though you foresaw it. If they believe chance cannot touch you, their fear will deepen into awe. A mind that commands fear does not only dominate through punishment or cruelty, it creates the atmosphere that resistance is pointless. Men obey most readily not when threatened with pain, but when convinced they stand before something greater than themselves, something that cannot be broken. Become that presence, and your power will not only be respected, but feared as eternal. For what man dares to defy what he believes was always meant to rule?